Waters Adventure Fishing Report. There was a lot of fishing done this weekend with the weather. A lot of people got out because it's, in the mid 50s, low 60s. And then this upcoming week, we're going to be in the 60s with sunshine, and the nights aren't going to be quite as cool. So that's going to be really nice as well. With the bite right now, it is a little bit sporadic depending on where you go and what the weather's like. You could do incredibly well, or you could have a tough day. That seems to be the general consensus. But I'll talk about what we've been catching them on, what some of our fishing team and friends of the shop have been catching them on, and how we did this weekend. First, I want to talk about Dennis because he got out over to Whiskeytown. He did an incredibly good job. The water has equalized. So the glory hole over at Whiskeytown, it's been draining water out of it. So the lake, even though it was very full, it's dropping a bit. It's still very full, but it's not as high as it was, meaning that it's not above where the boat ramp should be, and it's not on the public access pier. So the water's dropped a bit, and we've had some really cool nights, which has pushed the fish down a little bit deeper. The nice thing is, with these warmer days, in the middle of the afternoon, that's kind of moving them back up. So when we were out there, it was about 47 to 50 degrees. When Dennis was out on Friday, he was throwing these new baits that we got in the shop. They're pulse fish lures. They're a type of underspin, and we've got them in 3/8 and a 5/8 ounce in a couple of different colors. And he was throwing these up real shallow and fishing them down kind of like a bluff wall. There's a lot of debris in the water right now. There's a lot of trees and stuff. So be ready to get snagged. But when he was out there, he caught 10 fish. He was catching them up to 20 1/4 inches, which is a hell of a spot. So a lot of these fish, or not a lot of them, but a few of these fish were probably in that 4 or 5 pound range. And as if you fish Whiskeytown, most of your consistent fish are in that 3 pound range, and it makes for a fun day. But he said the morning was very slow. Once the water warmed up, he found them in the backs of coves, on timber, and pulling it down the bank. When we went out on the Sunday, and the water temperature, like I said, was between 47 and 50 degrees when we started, and it was tough. There was a lot of trout activity, so if you like to troll for trout or cast for trout or fish kokanee, they seem to be right on the surface right now. I did catch a really nice rainbow on a crankbait, fishing in about 5 feet of water for bass. Slammed it really, really good. It was actually a fun fight, but you see them jumping everywhere. So if you like to troll and you like trout, this would probably be a great time to get out there. And when I gutted it, because I did take it home, there was probably about a 3-inch fish inside of it. It was too digested for me to tell what it was, but it could be a little kokanee, it could be a little bass, could be a little trout, could be any number of little things in there. But about 3 inches, which is about the size of the crankbait I was throwing. So keep that in mind, maybe pulling Rapalas and plugs like that, Castmasters, the classics. We did have Daryl. He ended up catching the only bass of our trip. There was 5 of us out there, and it was a very different day than when Dennis was out by himself. Daryl got one drop shotting in about 25 feet of water with a 4-inch Kitech. I believe it was the Swing Impact, which is the skinnier one. Most people are familiar with the Fat Impact. They've also got their Easy Shiner, which is another skinny profile. Great bait to check out if you haven't seen them already. But he caught that one drop shotting, and I hooked up one on an underspin that did get off, and that was about it for the day. We fished from, I think we got out there at 8 o'clock till about 3 o'clock, and it was slow. It looked great. I mean, we took our layers off. It was super nice out there, but I think those cold nights really pushed them back down. We marked a lot of fish in that 20 to 50 foot range, but we couldn't get those deeper ones to go. So all in all, go out there if you have the chance, especially with this nice weather. You have a really good chance at an awesome day, or it might be slow, but a nice day on the water. James Robertson, and if you'd like to check him out, it's james.robertson.3133. His Instagram, his Facebook is awesome. If you like to see guys catch a lot of fish, especially off a kayak, he's out there doing it. He went to Bullard's Bar, and he said the water after the last storm was up another 50 to 60 feet, which is awesome. Our lakes need it, and we've got another storm coming this weekend, so that's going to be fun. But there's lots of wood on the surface, whether that washed in or just kind of lifted up. There's a lot of floating debris, and they did catch quite a few fish. The water temp was 49 degrees. The clarity was about 5 to 10 feet, and they were catching them on drop shots and Ned rigs. With the Ned rigs, they were using a 2.8 Kitech, which pretty much everywhere around here, any of the lakes, any of the upper reservoirs, anywhere you go, they will eat a little swim bait like this. Day in, day out, you can't beat it. We are carrying another new product for these two, the Dirty Jigs Guppy Heads. These things are awesome. It's a small shank hook on a heavy head. So because these baits aren't big, a lot of hooks go back too far into the body. This one stays far enough forward where you still get the wobble, roll, and kick of the paddle tail the way it's designed to. So we've got those in 2 different colors, 3 different sizes. Check those out if you're looking for a good option for little swim baits, especially up here with the spots and smallmouth. You almost can't beat it. Same thing with these underspins, which I didn't mention, is they have a fine wire short shank hook, so you can use these smaller baits, whether it be the 2.8s or the 3.3s, and there's a lot of different companies that make smaller and bigger baits all in that same size range. But if you're close to 3 inches, those are great ways to go. He was also getting them on a Carolina rig, and the drop shot, it was I believe it's called a haze dong, and it's a Megabass drop shot swim bait. So check those out. I know he absolutely kills them on that. And yeah, it sounds like they had a pretty good time out there. They were really deep though, so they were in 40 to 70 feet. So I think again, this cold weather has really pushed the fish back down at night, but the days are warm. And I know this morning it was in the 40s when I woke up, and it was 66 today. So with that type of weather, it should get these fish moving really shallow, and that means you can hopefully get them on a reaction bite, cranking, spinner baits, the fun baits like that. They went out to Orville the next day, and it was up another 50 feet from the last time they saw it. So that lake's very full. The water temperature was 48 degrees. He said clarity was about 3 foot. They threw everything in the kitchen sink at them and had a really, really tough time. I don't think they caught anything at all. He said that everybody at the dock kind of had the same consensus, and everybody had a tough day. So it really goes day to day. A buddy of mine on Saturday was fishing a tournament over at Orville, and they took second in their club tournament. He said the water was 47 degrees, and the first 2 fish, they caught it right off the bat in the morning, 10 to 15 feet on a crankbait. So if you're in the right spot, if the fish are there, you can get them on a reaction bite, which is always more fun, I think, personally. They looked around for a while, and they found a school in 50 to 75 feet, and they had bait, and they couldn't get those fish to bite. So they seem to be in a range. They got their other bites on a green pumpkin jig in 25 to 30 feet, just dragging it real slow. And then later in the day, his dad, which is his boat partner, cast it up really, really shallow without noticing. So he starts swimming it back to recast and gets blasted. So they started fishing this area pretty shallow in 5 to 10 feet with, again, a 2.8 and these guppy heads is exactly what they were using. And he culled 6 fish. I think they caught 8 or 10 of them in that spot, and they just started going through them. The bite died, and then that was the last fish they had for the day. They were talking about in their tournament, they did have a lot of people who did not catch any fish at all. At least, I'm sorry, not didn't catch fish at all, but didn't come in with a full limit. So it's still a tough bite, and it's sporadic. You know, again, this time of year, they're kind of a little bit of everywhere. So get them while you can and get out while you can, because you're either going to have a phenomenal day or a tough day. But as long as you're on the water, especially with the weather 66, 70 degrees, it's going to be nice. Clear Lake, I don't have a lot of information on this one, but it's fishing tough this last weekend. I had a buddy went out. He's a very good fisherman. He only caught 3 fish, and he caught 2 of them on jigs. I'm assuming the other one he caught throwing a big swim bait. They did have a 5-pounder in the bunch, but previously they were talking about Clear Lake being really on. I think, again, this colder weather in the evenings have pushed those fish off or turned them off a little bit. Again, those ones are Florida strain largemouth in there, so they're a little bit more affected by the cooler nights. Some of the fish we have up here, some lakes have a lot of northern strain largemouth like Trinity, probably aren't as affected. And I don't know anybody who's fished up Trinity yet, so we'll just put that one away now because I just don't know. Trinity River, on the other hand, is fishing incredibly well. The water's still high. It's still moving fast. If you had been out there a few weeks ago, it's probably 3 or 4 foot higher up the bank than you saw it last. With that being said, they're catching fish, and they're catching nice fish. This push of water that came down is really bringing in a new batch of steelhead. From what I saw, everybody's getting some smolties and up to 25-inch, really beautiful steelhead. Eggs and legs, as always, the classic for the Trinity River. You can't go wrong. Roe is a good choice. And then with the darker water, too, throwing something like a spoon or a spinner to put a little vibration and flash in the water is also a really good way to go. My personal preference, my go-to, is a gold Clio or a golden black Panther Martin, size 6 or 9, probably 9 with the water moving the way it is right now. I didn't quite make it out there this weekend, unfortunately. But the guys that I've talked to and the pictures that I've seen, there are some really nice fish being caught. So if you got the chance, get over there now while the fishing's good. And then the last guy I want to talk about is Justin. He's a seasonal employee of ours, and he just picked up a new Ike Edition PA14, and he finally got his first slime on it. He'd only been out twice before, but he took it out to Shasta over to Jones Valley, and he caught quite a few fish today. And the fun thing is he was catching them shallow. He was throwing that underspin as well, but he was fighting the wind today. I believe he was throwing a little bit bigger size Kitech on it. I think he was doing the 3.3 or the 3.8 on these underspin heads, and he was fishing it really shallow in this type of grass. It's on shore, it's a weed, and it's dried out, and they're a little stiff. I don't know what it is, but casting up into those things and swimming them through, something that I assume a swim jig, a crankbait, or a spinner bait would potentially do really good, as well as a chatterbait. But he was throwing that underspin, and he caught quite a few fish, upwards of 17, 18 inches. And he was also dealing with the wind. So when he was getting blown around on these wind-blown points, he was trolling an A-rig, which if you haven't done that, if it's hard to fish out, pulling that thing along is a great way to pick up a few bites. Just if you're out there to have some fun and struggling, throw it behind the boat, pedal slowly, and as you're moving, give it a pop every once in a while, and sooner or later you'll pick up your fish. The fish that he was catching when he was casting, he was hiding behind some of these coves, pitching into really shallow grass and swimming it down. Like I said, these underspins we have are a 3/8 and a 5/8, so you can cast them shallow and really let them work down those bluff walls. As they fall, they're going to spin. As they hit the bottom, they're going to tink with the blades, and yeah, they're just a great lure, and these smaller hooks don't overpower these small baits, which is really nice. And they're a really fine wire, so they're very sharp. Another bait that I want to talk about that I've been throwing, and again on this more finesse swim bait finesse technique, are scroungers. So this is something that I threw a lot in the Delta, and because the fish when I was out weren't very shallow, I didn't get any bites on this, but throwing this is another great option for a finesse minnow technique. If they're eating the 2.8s and the 3.3s and they're eating them on the underspins and swim bait heads, if you put them on this, it really gives them a small shimmy. So if the fish are finicky, if you have a hard time getting a bite, that is a great way to go. You can use a number of different lures. What you could do is with the Kitex, actually cut off the boot tail part, and that will put a lot of action without the kick into it because it's not supposed to be as aggressive. A lot of people use the Zoom flukes with these baits as well, which I've done and had very good success on with striper in the Delta. I've even thrown Senkos on them. So again, because this bait is so soft, it really reflects the action that's being put into it, even though it's very subtle. Generally, I do it in more of a shad color. There's also places like Whiskey Town where we've got a lot of bluegill and bass. It's a great place to throw, maybe more of that green pumpkin color as well. The other bait that's really nice on those, and there's a lot of really nice baits, is something like the Zako. So this is something that a lot of people are going to use as a chatterbait trailer, but again, because of it being almost a jointed soft plastic, it's going to shimmy really nicely and take on the subtle representation of this, which I could only say is very similar to an ultra finesse chatterbait. But it's a bait that I think a lot of people overlook and don't throw that often, so it's a great one to throw when everybody else is doing something else. The hooks are good. I've got them in a 1/4 ounce and 3/8 ounce to kind of change depths and chase your different fish, 2 different hook sizes, but something to keep in mind and try while you're out there. Just another tool in the arsenal. It's something I want to talk about besides the newer stuff that we got in, and we will be getting more new stuff in. Come pick these up before they're gone, by the way. We've sold through most of them already. But we got a bunch of stuff coming from Yak Attack for our fishing meetups. If you haven't checked into the fishing meetups yet, go on headwatersadventure.com, go to the calendar, and you could see from March to October, we've got one fishing meetup scheduled per month. And Yak Attack has donated stuff for giveaway or prizes for those things. I'm talking to some other vendors. So if that's not a good reason to come out just to make some new friends and catch a few fish. If I've got any questions, have any questions back there, Brian? Comments, concerns? No? All right. Well, until next time, hopefully we see you in at the shop soon. It's going to be some nice weather. So go out there, get some fish, and stay fishy, my friends. We'll see you soon.